What's up, A to Z Sports? Easton Freeze here with JT Runke. We are at St. Thomas Sports Park. Practice is now over. This is Friday, and we are here talking to you about what was a surprise Titans practice that was held here this morning. The Titans decided, if you are just catching up on this, I suppose, that they just needed an extra practice. They wanted to add a third day to what was already going to be a two-day weekend of padded practices. So Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, we will be out here and hopefully after each practice be able to give you guys a review here on the YouTube channel of what exactly we saw, just keeping everybody up to date. Was a relatively low-key practice in terms of the padded practices so far, not from what they were doing necessarily, but the length of time and the amount of involvement physically. I think that's probably just because it was going to be a walkthrough. They turned into a padded practice, but they're about to do two more padded practices, so they just met in the middle somewhere.
Don't want to put too much tread on the tires.
That's right. You don't want to overdo it, but I think the primary reason, which was explained to us by Brian Callahan essentially before today's practice, they're about to be on this long 2-week road trip where they're doing multiple joint practices with other teams. They've got preseason games coming up, and they wanted to make sure that they're all tuned up and ready to go. You got to make sure your house is in order before you go and compete against the other teams. You don't want to embarrass yourself, but more importantly, you don't want to not be ready to get the most out of these very important practices as you possibly can. So that's why we were here. And aside from why we were here, JT, let's talk about a couple of big picture takeaways from practice. What is the biggest thing that you left practice today thinking about from Titans practice Friday?
Yeah, there were certainly a lot of players that stood out. But before we get to those, just want to say we talked a lot about how the defense has kind of won both days on Tuesday and Wednesday's padded practice. Today felt a lot more even. I think The offense came back. There was a lot more offensive looks down the field, a lot more success in that way, and a lot of that came from a receiver that you probably have not heard about until 2 days ago or something, which is James Proche, the free agent wide receiver the Titans signed earlier this year from the Baltimore Ravens. He has been a pleasant surprise.
Actually, he was a Brown.
Was he a Brown?
He was originally, most notably, a Raven. His most recent stop was with the Browns.
There you go.
There's a reason why you don't remember that. I didn't remember it until I looked it up and reminded myself about it earlier this week. But he has been up there in the AFC North doing things. The reason why he's kind of a lower key player is because I think his 5 years in the league, I believe he is going on 6 years in the league, he's been primarily a return specialist.
Yep.
And that's what at least I'd imagine you also came into this camp seeing him as a potential seventh receiver on the roster, but as a return specialist insurance policy of sorts. We know this team is actively, or at least was actively, trying to get other guys to develop into this role. For example, let me just throw a name out there. Chimere Dike is somebody that I think that they would love to take one of, if not maybe both of the returner spots. They think that he's capable of doing that. Now Proche's out here just earning the job on the merits of being a receiver. I don't know what to say other than the facts. His coaches have been very impressed with this camp so far. He has been the most productive receiver on the team in 11-on-11 drills through 6 days of practice. And he's been impressive at all three levels of the field. It's not like, he's the screen guy and they just keep pounding him with screens. No, it's been all over the field. They've been getting him the ball and he's been winning. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that he's rising up the depth chart of receivers? Pump the brakes on that. It's important to note who he is going up against in practice. I saw some people when I tweeted this like, that's more a reflection on the Titans wide receiver core than it is on James Proche, which is an understandable thing to think. I want to be super clear. He is beating his competition, right? He is not competing.
Cornerback 5 and 6.
Right. He is not competing against the same guys that the established roster lock guys are going up against. Now, he is increasingly playing against higher and higher levels of competition on the depth chart, but it's still not typically those first-team guys. So, no, he is not outperforming Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett at practice, but he is outproducing them against the competition that we thought coming in, it's Restrepo and it's Proche really fighting for that last role as receiver 7, if they do keep a receiver 7. Through 6 days of practice that we've seen, it is impossible to think he does not earn a spot on the roster as the receiver 7. I don't see any argument for another player or to keep him off the roster. I think that he is firmly on the roster right now, and that affects two things primarily. One, Xavier Restrepo's ability to make the team, and two, the Titans need, the necessity to find somebody else to be a returner. You still can, but you don't have to if Proche is on the team.
Yeah, he checks a lot of boxes that this team needs at the returner position. Not only that, but also at a position that you probably don't think about a lot, which is gunner on punt protection and
Right.
things like that. That's something that this guy can really contribute to. We know that Bryce Oliver also does that. So,
Right. So who
once
else?
again, right, it is just basically Bryce Oliver, maybe a cornerback 5 or 6, but Proche is looking to also contribute there. He talked about that a lot today, saying that when he was drafted by Baltimore, he gave a lot of credit to the Ravens staff who taught him, hey, you're not just a wide receiver, you are a football player. And that means also contributing as much as you possibly can on special teams, which is a mindset that I think a lot of these wide receivers are trying to have in this camp, but it's something that Proche already has, which I think is a huge step up. And once again, we're talking about wide receiver 6 or 7 here.
Yes.
Nothing more than that. But I'm on the same wavelength as you. I cannot overlook how the connection between him and Brandon Allen has looked over 3 days of practice. From
I've always
catching,
said that Brandon Allen to James Proche is gonna feed fantasy families this fall.
when he caught the touchdown here in the end zone right next to the field that we're on, and then going 3 for 3 with him today, like you said, every level of the field. He's not just one of these guys vying for a slot position where you see like Jaquan Jackson and Xavier Restrepo like getting a lot of their work in the underneath, in the immediate part of the field. Brandon Allen and James Proche connected on a really deep pass today that was pretty impressive over Marcus Harris. So like he is doing it all over the field.
Well, if wide receiver 7 talk isn't quite your speed, let's talk about the starting quarterback of the team. My one big thing is Cam Ward and how the batted balls are a thing now.
Yep.
Through 3 practices, we have counted 7 tipped or batted passes, some at the line of scrimmage, some at the linebacker level, guys off the line. It's impossible to ignore at this point as an issue. Now, we asked him about this on Thursday? When did we speak to Cam? Wednesday, because we were off Thursday.
Yes.
On Wednesday, we spoke to Cam about this, and when we asked about the batted balls, he was so dismissive so far as to kind of be aggressively unbothered by
Yes.
it, which I don't necessarily take issue with that response right now, and he's somebody that's working through a lot of things. And is there an element of bad luck to having a number of balls tipped in a row? Yes. But 7 in 3 days, there's more to it than just a streak of bad luck to me. What's weird about this is that it wasn't an issue for him in college. This wasn't really a thing. And I was asking some people that I know, like you and I did our due diligence scouting his college tape at Miami at least. I was like, am I just misremembering, or is this a blind spot in me watching him? Was he getting balls batted down way more than I remember? And the answer was no. This was not a thing. Was he getting his fair share knocked down? Yes, and that's not particularly surprising since he's not the tallest quarterback in the world in the first place. But it wasn't a concerning thing. It wasn't something in his scouting report. You didn't go to Daniel Jeremiah's write-up and it's like, this guy gets a lot of balls tipped or batted down at the line. And now it's a thing here. Why is that? Well, for one of his strengths, one of his superpowers is throwing interesting arm angles, slotting the ball, throwing full sidearm on a relatively common occasion. And a little bit of information for you. When you throw the ball sidearm, it's at body level. Yeah. And whether or not this is an issue of him trying to mentally adjust to your expectations when you do choose an arm angle of what the speed and athleticism of the defender is going to be, because there is a jump from college to the NFL. Maybe that's it. I don't quite know. I want to continue to ask the coaches and maybe ask him again if this continues, what the troubleshooting of this is and what the coaching points of it are, because at this point, if this keeps up, his coaches are going to have to get through to him and his unbothered attitude. And it's not a big deal day 1 of August as we stand here, but it's something that I think he's going to have to mentally and then physically adjust to before we get to the season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And not to say that it doesn't not work sometimes. You also see those arm angles working in practice.
Yes,
certainly
of course.
had a better day today. A lot of those were working with his connection with Tyler Lockett, with Van Jefferson, a better day overall. But yes, it's becoming an increasingly concerning thing. And I think Brian Callahan also touched on that this morning at his press conference, the difference between Cam Ward's, what worked for him in college and what is going to work at the pro level. he still talked about how it's very new. He's still learning. He is still a ball of clay that is being molded.
Oh, you're saying he's a rookie quarterback on
Correct.
August 1st, learning how to play in the
Yes,
NFL?
correct.
Turns out that just because you're the first pick, everything is not roses and daisies for you once you get to the next level. Other tidbits, notes off the top of my head before we let you guys go. The players we didn't see of most note out there today, T'Vondre Sweat day-to-day with what sounds like a relatively unconcerning abdominal issue. So maybe, he just like had some bad chicken, or maybe it's a physical thing, I don't know. Whatever it was, they don't seem all that bothered by it. And then Calvin Ridley, who we saw leave the practice before this with what we ended up reporting to be a cramp, was not out there today, but that was not for injury reasons. That's just a rest thing. This is around the time where you'll see veterans around the league start to do that veteran management, and with 3 consecutive days of practice this weekend, they gave the first one off to Calvin Ridley. Anything else that I'm missing?
Nothing really on that front besides what happened today in practice. Peter Skoronski ended up not finishing the day with the team. He was in the first series of reps for the last session of practice, but ended up getting subbed out. Looked like he was favoring his right leg a little bit, and then eventually went in with trainers, saw that coming off the field. I actually got a chance to talk to him after practice. He came back out, which is a good sign. If the player comes back out, they're probably not that hurt. And he confirmed that he just rolled, just a little roll up on his leg. He's good to go, nothing serious. So
perfect.
Crisis averted there.
Crisis averted for my bet to be the best lineman on this Titans team this year. Well, we've got 2 more of these that we will probably, barring some unforeseen circumstances, be coming to you with a video just like this immediately following Saturday and Sunday's practices. I think Austin Stanley will be back and involved in this. We'll be talking Titans practice, and then of course be back with you guys on Monday on the morning show. Until tomorrow's video, same place, similar time, I'm Easton Freeze. He's JT Runke. We'll talk to you then.